First is the introduction of the ethnopharmacology. And then we'll see then the traditional Indian remedies and the regional folklore in case of the both animal and the human disease cure is the matter of concern. And the ethnopharmacology is the study of medicinal use of the plants by indigenous people. Then the World Health Organization has defined as medicinal plants as the plants, especially so World Health WHO has defined the medicinal plants as plants that contain properties or compounds that can be used for the therapeutic purpose or those that synthesize metabolites to produce the useful things. That's how the World Health Organization has defined the medicinal plants. And here the ancient archaeological records of the medicinal plants are like this. In the year 3500 BCE, India had an extensive pharmacopoeia. It has got the well-defined medicinal, what you call it, the plant description. And much of that knowledge is still used as part of the Ayurveda medicinal system. So the Charaka and Sushruta, who had contributed to the Ayurvedic science in the 3500 BCE, is still it is valid and the people are practicing the same. And 2250, that's BCE, Egypt and Babylon were trading the medicinal plants. In 900 BCE, archaeological records demonstrate that the use of medicinal and the psychoactive plants in the New World, that's the New World has started from that particular period. And in the 330 BCE, one of the Theophrastus student, that's the Alexander the Great, sent medicinal plants from Asia back to Greece for the cultivation. Whereas in the beginning of this century, that's the 2000 YA, the first written Chinese records, although use is probably as the India's. So he is the Sipili, the god of the inbreeding plants. So the god of the plants by the people of the Greek, they are considering him as the god of the plant. And how to find a medicinal plant? Because thousands of plants are there on the earth, and some of them may be medicinal, and some are toxic, and some are consumable, and some are required for the conservation of the earth. So there are typically two approaches used. One is a random search or a targeted search. So in this random search, a broad net is cast and the plants from specific region are collected and screened for potential medicinal properties. So that's the random. Randomly they are selecting and without regard of the taxonomic stages or the classification. The National Cancer Institute discovered the Taxol produced from the bark of Pacific yellow or the tree, an important drug used to treat the breast and ovarian cancer during the randomized study. That means these plants are found accidentally. So not the purposeful. These plants, most of the time, they are found with an accident because they were searching for some other thing and suddenly found this thing without any intention. Whereas the targeted search is the one, and this can be in a targeted search, it is very systematic because here the targeted disease is there and the targeted cure is also searched. And the phylogenetic surveys, they are the close relatives of this particular plant known to useful compounds are collected. Suppose a plant is there and the phylogenetic surveys are conducted in such a way that the similar plants belonging to the botanical group are searched and they are collected. Whereas the ecological surveys, the plants that live in particular habitats or which have particular characteristics such as the immunity to predation by the insects or mollusks, etc., are selected. So, ecologically, if the plant is surviving better, they think that this is a medicinal plant and they live in a particular habitat and have particular characteristics such as the plant which is immune to predation by the consumption of the insects and mollusks, and such plants are selected. And whereas the third method is ethnobotanical survey, and the plants used by indigenous people in traditional medicine are selected for further research and study. This is the already these plants have been used by the traditional people, and such plants are being studied in this particular ethnobotanical survey. And this is resulted in the proper positive manner, because already there is an evidence that these plants are used for the medicinal purpose. Hence, these are all the evidence-based plants, and the ethnobotany, it's a systematic survey. The traditional use of the medicine is recognized as the way to learn about potential future medicines. So in 2001, researchers has identified 122 compounds used in the mainstream medicine, which is called as the modern English medicine or modern scientific medicine, what we call the allopathic medicines, which were derived from the ethnomedical plant resources. And this includes the cinchona alkaloids, especially quinines and other drugs which are used in the malaria. So earlier, these were derived from the plants. Later, they are synthesized in the bulk also. So 80% of these compounds were used in the same or related manner as the traditional ethnomedical use. 80% of this compound are used in the same related manner as the traditional ethnomedical medicine for a long time, because there was no synthetic mechanism, and the bulk requirement of the drug was also not there, and there was sufficient resource of the plants at that time. But later, when the demand increased and the plant as in the natural resources could not suffice the thing, hence later they were usually, what they have done is they have synthesized many of the new drugs with the new drug discovery process. And many plant synthesized substances that are useful to the maintenance of the health of the human beings and other animal. So the plants are also used as the food source, especially some of the monocotyledons, dicotyledons, and many more plants that yield the fruits and the tubers, and many more substances are used as the food of the animal origin and also to the human use. And these include aromatic substances, and most of which are phenols or the oxygen substituted derivatives such as the tannins. So the aromatic substances are very easy to identify, and they contain the phenols because of the oxygen substituted derivatives and the tannins, and many are the secondary metabolites. So the active principle responsible for the medicinal property or the therapeutic purpose is not the primary metabolite of the plant. It is the secondary metabolite, of which at least 12,000 have been isolated, a number estimated to be less than 10% of the total number what is present at today. So the secondary metabolites, especially the maybe the phenols, tannins, and glycosides, alkaloids, and many more classifications are there, and these may be used as the secondary metabolites, and especially they may be required for the protection of the plant itself, just like the cyanide. So in many cases, substances such as the alkaloids serve as plant defense mechanisms against predation by microorganisms, insects, and herbivores. So herbivores are the dangerous threats to the smaller herbs especially, whereas the human being is a threat to all types of the plants, whereas the predation by the microorganisms and the insects. So these plants need to sustain from all the attacks, and they have to survive. And many of the herbs and species used by the humans to season food yield useful medicinal compounds also. So many of the plants in this earth are useful to the human beings, and they are serving as useful medicinal compounds also. So people on all continents have used the hundreds to thousands of indigenous plants for the treatment of ailments since prehistoric time. Because today we may be talking about the modern medicinal science or the allopathic type of the medicines. But whenever such systematic type of the medicines, what we think now, it was not there, then also the people were using that particular substance as a medicinal to cure their diseases. So the treatment ailments were found since historic times also. Then some of the animals have digestive systems especially adapted to cope with certain plant toxins. For example, the one of the important thing is the rodents are resistant to cyanides because they can digest the cyanide and metabolite, and they will not be affected because of the rhodonase enzyme. And the koala can live on the leaves and shoots of the eucalyptus, a plant that is dangerous to most of the animals. So it is a wild animal, and it is only eating the shoots of the eucalyptus because eucalyptus is having the eucalyptus oil, which is having very pungent odor, and most of the animals dislike this plant. But few of the species, they can eat this plant and live. And the same thing is also observed in the neem plant. Neem is, of course, it is resistant to most of the insects. Even then, certain type of the fungi, they are going to attack the neem and going to spoil the plant. A plant that is harmless to a particular animal may not be safe for the human to ingest. So the Atropa belladonna is a plant that is harmless to rabbit, and these rabbits are selectively eating this particular plant. That's a surprise also. They are having the affinity. They say that the rabbits are having the affinity towards the Atropa belladonna, and they eat, and the atropinase is the enzyme which detoxifies the atropine in them. It is a safe plant, whereas if we consume, or if the animals consume, other animals consume, then they will die or get affected with the toxicity of this particular Atropa belladonna. So the reasonable conjecture is that these discoveries were traditionally collected by the medicines, then the people of the indigenous tribes, who then passed the safety information and cautions. So nowadays, in the modern medicine or modern allopathic medicine, what we say is the plants are being used since so many years. But now the safety study is conducted, the efficacy study is conducted, the pharmacokinetic and the dynamic properties of the pure compound is studied. Whereas the ancient people, especially the indigenous tribes, they had the idea whether the plant is having some toxic aspect and how much quantity of the plant need to be consumed, and also what type of the toxicity signs it will have. So all this information was gathered by them, and it was passed to the subsequent generation. So coming to the written record, the study of the herbs dates back over 5,000 years to the Sumerians, who described well-established medicinal uses of the plants such as laurel, then caraway and thyme. So we'll see what are the botanical names. Nowadays, they say that it's a laurel, caraway and thyme because each 20 kilometers, maybe in any geographical area, the colloquial name of the plant change. So that's why it is very difficult to know them by the names like laurel, caraway and thyme. So only the present binomial nomenclature method with the species and the family of the particular plant is of very good use. So the Sumerians in the about 5,000 years back only, they have found the well-established medicinal uses of the plants, especially 3 or 4 plants, it is noted here. Whereas the ancient Egyptian medicines of 1000 before Christ were known to have used as the varieties of the household substances, especially the garlic, whereas the opium was also treated as one of the medicinal plant at that time to tooth extraction, etc. And the use of the castor oil in the purgation and the coriander, the mint, indigo and other herbs for the medicine and Old Testament. So that's the document also mentions herb use in the cultivation, including the mandrake wedge, caraway, wheat, barley, and rye. All these herbs used for the cultivation of a medicinal plant, and all these were very well used by the Egyptian people. And the Indian Ayurvedic system has been used the herbs such as the turmeric possibly as early as the 1900 BC. So many other herbs and minerals used in Ayurveda were later described by the ancient medicinal herbalists such as the Charaka and Sushruta. So it goes as the first millennium BC, these two people, especially Charaka and Sushruta, contributed a very great to the Indian medicinal system that's called as the Ayurveda now. So the Sushruta Samhita attributed to Sushruta in the 6th century BC, it describes 700 medicinal plants and 64 preparations from the mineral sources and 57 preparations based on the animal sources. So the medicinal plants are the one which are contributing to the treatment of the people. But apart from this one, the animal source materials of the animal source also serve in the treatment and the preparations of the mineral source and also the animal source. So the 6th century Sushruta Samhita, in that only he has described varieties of this particularly the plants and the other mineral sources and also many in animal sources for the purpose of the medicinal property. Now, the many of the pharmaceuticals currently available to the physicians have a long history of use as herbal remedies, including opium or Papaverum somniferum plant and the aspirin. So it is also derived, whereas the digitalis and quinine is one of the oldest drug that is derived for the treatment of malaria. Thousands of the people used to die at that time, and the bark of the cinchona tree was served as a boon to this particular curing contribution of the malaria at that time. Whereas the World Health Organization, WHO, estimates that 80% of the world's population presently use the herbal medicine for the aspect of the underlying, please listen, primary health care. So many read that the 80% of the world's population today also use the primary health care, especially the herbal medicines as the primary health care needs. Whereas the addition to use of the developing world, herbal medicine is used in the industrialized nations also by alternative medicine practitioners such as the naturopaths. So the naturopaths, still it is one of the very famous what you call as the system. So the Ayurveda, which is of the ancient science, of course it would have led the world, but there is one constraint about this particular thing. The Ayurveda is not updated because it is the people are saying that it is the ancient one, we should not change it. So only the changing things will be used by the present people. That's why the allopathy is becoming very popular nowadays. So even though the India has gained a very popular Ayurvedic practicing system, it is not so popular because it is not having the cure for the acute diseases like the corona and whatever it may be. So the Ayurveda has not what you call as the exposed itself to the development, means the changes, sudden changes. So the modern technologies and other things, or else the Indians would have been the pioneered in the world to the treatment of varieties of the diseases, especially the new drug discovery. Because when the countries like America and other countries which are leading the pharmaceutical companies nowadays, which have got such potential sources of the medicine, so they have never originated at that time. So the Indians had a very good chance, but later it has not been developed. Then all plants produce chemical compounds as part of their normal, that is called as the metabolic activity, and these are what you call as arbitrarily divided into primary metabolites such as the sugars and fats found in all the plants. So the sugars, especially what we call here very specifically is carbohydrates and the proteins and also the fats. So it is found in many plants, especially some of the grains which do contain the oils also. And oil seed cakes are there, oil seeds are there, and the rice, the jowar, the maize, etc., do contain lot of the sugars, especially the carbohydrates. So it may be the secondary, what are the secondary metabolite are the compound not essential for the basic function found in the smaller range of the plant. So the secondary components are not required for the either it's a basic function of the plant, neither for the growth or nor for the production of the plants. For example, the pigments harvest light, protect the organism from radiation and display color to attract the pollinators. So these are all the some natural reasons why certain plants have got the red leaf, some of have got the white leaf, and many more. Because to attract the insects for the pollination, all these things have been done. Then the functions of secondary metabolites are varied, especially, for example, some secondary metabolites are toxins used for the deter predations, especially predators like the insects, and other are the pheromones used to attract insects for the pollinations, and certain very good fragrance. It's also the attractive for the pollination purpose for the insects, and sometimes the very good attractive color and also the cosmetic appearance of the plant and also the fragrance will attract the insects and for the pollination and for the growth of the plants for yielding the seeds. Or the phytoalexins protect against bacterial and fungal attacks, whereas the phytoalexins means they are the chemicals which protect the plant against the bacterial and fungal attacks. So the allelochemicals inhibit rival plants that are competing for the soil and the light. So this happens, especially the allelochemicals are present in the Parthenium and Eupatorium odoratum, etc. You might have seen that if Parthenium is growing in one place, no other plant will grow. So that is a very specific chemical it is got, so that which inhibit the growth of the other plant. So whenever Parthenium these weeds are there, no other plant will grow, and also it applies to the Eupatorium. So this is about the history, and there are a few medicinal plants used since traditional days for the medicinal purpose, and we will have a glance on this particular medicinal plants. So Strychnus toxifera is the source of the D-tuberculin, a neuromuscular blocking agent or the muscle relaxant. So whereas the Strychnus naxomica is a toxic plant. Of course, the Strychnus toxifera is also a toxic plant because of the content of the DTC in it, because DTTC is one of the most prominent muscle relaxant, neuromuscular relaxant, blocking agent, and it's having the medicinal property. And also this DTC was used as a arrow poison, as the DTC used to be extracted from the Strychnus toxifera plant, and the extract was applied to the arrow, and also the people used to hunt it. The same thing, physostigmine was also used. So these are all the traditional, one of the oldest plants used for the medicinal purpose as well as the other purposes by the people. And Mexican yam is also known as Dioscorea villosa. It is the source of the cortisols. So the natural source of the cortisols, which is available in the earth, are the Mexican yam and the cortisols. Once again, you may be knowing the cortisols are very effective in controlling the inflammation. So nowadays, the cortisones are used as the life-saving drug that you may be knowing, especially during this corona pandemic. The drug which is saving the life of the people is the dexamethasone, which is a long-acting cortisone. So the cortisones are going to block the varieties of the pathways of the inflammation. Hence, they are very commonly used for the treatment of the animals as well as human beings with the inflammation, especially inflammation of everything, including the joint, including the lungs, or inflammation due to the toxicity and many more things. So the Indian snake root is called as the Rauwolfia serpentina. It's the oldest plant that is the source of the reserpine, which is having the anti-hypertensive activity, the reserpine. It depletes the source of norepinephrine and has caused the degradation of the norepinephrine, and ultimately the blood pressure is lower. So the Indian snake root, means the root of this particular plant, is used for the extraction of the reserpine. It's also the this plant is available abundantly in Western Ghats, and in many countries this is grown for the extraction of the reserpine. Reserpine is still used as one of the drug which is a non-specific BP lowering agent. Whereas the Madagascar periwinkle, it's called as the Catharanthus roseus, or it's also called as the Vinca rosea. And you might have seen this plant as the source of the vincristine or the vinblastines, are two anti-cancerous drugs. Of course, they are used in the benign tumors to get rid of the mild cancerous agents, whereas these are all from the naturally derived, and whenever there is a lot of requirement, these are synthesized nowadays. Then here one of the plant is there that's called as the white hellebore. So that's called as the Veratrum album. So the Veratrum alkaloids are the one which are acting on the heart and cause the hypotension activity. So white hellebore is also one of the common plant that is used as the source of the cardiac alkaloids or hypotensive alkaloids. So varieties of the cardiac glycosides are also used, like Digitalis purpurea and Digitalis and Strychnus toxiferum, and many more plants were used for the anti-arrhythmic activities, including the quinidine, which is also derived from the cinchona alkaloids. And aloe vera nowadays, everybody is telling, say, talk of the town, because this aloe vera is used in almost all the herbal preparations. So it is traditionally used for the healing of the burns and wounds once upon a time. Now it is an ingredient of most of the creams, most of the what you call as the hand washing, this thing, and sanitizers also, they are using aloe vera. Then it is said that it is efficient in promoting wound healing and is used for the healing of first to second degree burn. But third degree burns and other things need the other treatment like the higher antibiotics, antihistamines and anti-inflammatory agents. So the another plant known as the artichoke, or is also called as Cyanara, that's a Cardunculus. So it may reduce the production of the cholesterol, means it is having anti-hyperlipidemic activity. So it is shown the efficacy in vitro through varieties of the studies. Whereas the blackberry is also called as the Rubus fruticoccus. So it's the blackberry has drawn the attention of the cosmetology community because it interferes with the metalloproteinase that contribute to skin wrinkling. So this plant and its these parts are very commonly used for the cosmetic purpose and preparation of the herbal cosmetic ingredients. So maybe so nowadays there are a lot of beauty parlors, maybe including both men and the women, and many of them are called as the herbal beauty parlors. And the people are so much fascinated towards the herbal substance. They think that the herbs are very safe to use and it is not having any toxicity or the side effect. So of course it is totally a wrong statement because many of the plants which do have the medicinal property do have a highly toxic potential because the dose is the one which determines whether it's a remedy or a toxin. So we need to be careful while using these particular plants also. Then the black raspberry, it's also called as Rubus occidentalis, and it may have a role in preventing oral cancers. So earlier the people used to chew this particular plant leaf and also the fruits, and they used to get rid of the oral cancer. So it has got the ancient history of the anti-cancerous property. And later, of course, the black raspberry and hundreds of the plants were screened for the anti-cancerous activity. So whereas this calendula, it's a one of the, of course, the ancient plant, since ages it is grown, and the botanical name of this plant is Calendula officinalis. So it has been used traditionally for the abdominal cramps and constipation in the raw format. And in the animal research, an aqueous or ethanol extract of the flowers was shown to have both spasmolytic and spasmogenic effects, thus providing a scientific rationale for the traditional use of this particular plant. And of course, many such plants are there, and in the Indian conditions, there is no specific evidence, especially, and the systematic scientific evidences and the limited evidences that calendula cream or ointment is effective in treating the radiation dermatitis, means the dermatitis which is caused by the radiation is effectively controlled by the paste of the Calendula officinalis plant. And ginger, yes, it is one of the well-known plant, and it's containing gingiberine and mainly used as in nausea and omission in case of pregnancy once upon a time. But nowadays, in veterinary medicine, it is used as the household remedy for the treatment of tympani and bloat, and it's also used as the carminative agent and also anti-flatulent, and many more uses are there, especially the ginger. Ginger is one of the main ingredients of the Indian food system, and for many of the preparation, ginger is used. And of course, nobody can deprive that the gingiber officinalis medicinal property. So another thing is the green tea, or it's also known as Camellia sinensis. Then this inhibits the growth of the breast cancer cells and may heal scars faster. And here I am reading this particular statement, and we can get such statements of claims of the medicinal property for almost all the plants which are present in this earth. That's not the exaggeration also, because if you show any plant to a herbalist, he will say that this is having XYZ property. And the people are attracted towards such property because they claim that the plant-based medicines do not have any side effect. But one thing is very clear that any substance in this earth which is having effect will have a side effect. As the Paracelsus has told the great sentence that all the substances in this earth are the poisonous and the dose is the one which differentiates that poison from the remedy. Means if the dose is in a correct quantity, then it becomes a medicine. Or else if it excess, if it is in the excess dose, then it becomes the toxic substance. So the hibiscus esculentus and hibiscus, that's the Sabdarifa, or purified extract of the seeds may have some anti-hypertensive, antifungal, and antibacterial effect. So the toxicity is tested low, except for an isolated case of damage to the testes of the rats after prolonged and excessive consumption. Yes, sir. This is one of the disadvantage of the herbal medicines, that they say that this is not toxic and can be consumed for the very longer period. But it is not like that, because many of the plants on chronic ingestion, they will cause the severe side effects, especially sometimes they are going to damage to the kidney, the liver, the reproductive organs, and also sometimes the central nervous system. So one need to be very careful while selecting such plants for prolonged use. They need the laboratory validation for such claims. And the honey, of course, now a lot of advertises are coming on the television media and other media that honey is a cure for the corona and it increases the immunity, and nobody knows how it increases, why it is increasing, and to which extent it's going to increase the immunity. Or first of all, it's said that there are no specific drugs to exactly boost the immunity, and especially in the herbal care, they claim that many of them will prevent the persons from the what you call as they have got the defensive mechanism against the virus and many more invading agents, including the honey also. It's also the then peppermint oil. It's one of the oil with aromatic flavor and may have benefits of individuals with irritable bowel syndrome. So you might have learned that the IBS is one of the common clinical signs of the irregular movements of the large intestine, and it is not having a specific cure as on the date, because the arrhythmic contraction of the large intestine causes the alternative diarrhea and constipation, and the IBS is a disease which is originated from the psychosomatic nature, because wherever the stress and the other factors, especially with lot of workload and other things, the people get stressed, and the adrenaline which is increased in the body may cause the peristalsis of the large intestine and may cause the frequent bowel movements, and also such type of the irritable, that's called as the syndrome, because it is not originated from a single cause. It is having the multiple what you call as the clinical signs and the causes also. So psychosomatic origin is one of the most important cause of the irritable bowel syndrome, and also the food habits. So the persons who are not eating the fiber-rich diet are succumbing to the irritable bowel syndrome. And in India and the US, about 10% of the people in the natural population are having the IBS. It's one of the important clinical signs. Or irritable bowel syndrome complicated with the there's the bacterial complications is also another disadvantage of the recent era. And pomegranate, yes, it contains the highest percentage of the L-arginine's of many commonly consumed juice. So the people drink the juice of this particular pomegranate to control the diarrhea and the content L-argitanins are metabolized into urolithins by the gut flora and have been shown to inhibit cancer cell growth in the mice, especially in case of the experimental study. Such type of the things are always being observed. And the Rauwolfia serpentina, already we have discussed about this thing. Especially this plant was extensively used for the India for so many purposes, like most of the central nervous disorders were being treated with the Rauwolfia serpentina root. That's the insomnia, that's the sleeplessness, anxiety, and high blood pressure, where the very commonly they were used once upon a time with lot of care about the dosage, because there was high risk of toxicity if improperly used. And there is a big question about the safety of the herbal products. Yes, the ancient Indians and the other people, they were knowing about the medicinal use of this particular plant. And to some extent, they were also knowing the toxic aspect of this particular plant. Whereas the Ayurvedic system of the medicine, they claim that they are devoid of the side effects. So, but as per the modern science, any substance which is claimed to have the medicinal property or effect on a particular disorder, it will have a side effect. And we'll see a number of herbs are thought to be likely to cause adverse effects. And apart from this one, there is adulteration property, inappropriate formulation, the proper quantity is not put, or sometimes the wrong calculations, wrong formulations, or lack of understanding of the plant and drug interactions. So nobody knows, especially in case of the herbal medicines, there are about 30 or 40 ingredients, and is there any drug interactions, or it is thought that when they are present in the natural forms, no drug interaction occurs. But undoubtedly, it's provided that many plants, if they are kept together for long duration, either the medicinal property of one of the other medicinal property will be lost. And proper double-blind clinical trials. So, double-blind means there should be a placebo control, and apart from this one, the different dose group should be there, and the doctor should also not know about the drug which is giving, and also the pharmaceutical company which is manufacturing. That's called as the double-blind clinical trials, which the systematic way is needed to determine the safety and efficacy of each plant before they can be recommended for the medicinal use. Because medicine means it has to come like that only. The OECD guidelines and so many countries have got their own guidelines, and many more things are there. And standardization is one of the property of the plant, because we cannot use the plant as such, because they may contain lot of the impurities, sometimes the fungal infected part, and sometimes they may contain the improper ingredient also. So there is a requirement of the standardization of the particular plant is concerned. So what is standardization means? So standardization of purity and dosage is not mandated in the, especially in the United States in the early ages, because it is already told that these plants are consumed in the natural way. But even products made them the same specification may differ as a result of the biochemical variation within the species of the plant. That was the thing. And plants have the chemical defense mechanisms against predators that can have the adverse lethal effect. So, on the human health, such plants may be having some adverse effect, because the plants have got the self-defense mechanism, especially against the insects, anti-insect property. Where the examples of such properties are hemlock and deadly nightshade or Atropa belladonna plant. And another one is the hemlock. So these have got the self-defense mechanism agents. The highest standard for the pharmaceutical testing is repeated, large-scale, and randomized double-blind tests are very much required for testing the plant for this efficacy and also for the safety in the modern method. In 2004, the US National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine in the National Institute of Health, that's the NIH, especially the America began funding clinical trials into the effectiveness of the herbal medicines. So because of this thing only, the Ayush, Ayurveda Siddha Unani Ministry of Government of India is established for looking into the either standard pharmaceutical and the preparations methods and the licensing procedures. So in the 2010, a survey of 1,000 plants, 156 had clinical trials published evaluating their pharmacological activities and therapeutic applications, while 12% of the plants, although available in the Western market, had no substantial studies of their properties. So there are individual cases here and there. Some of the studies have been conducted, but not systematically. They are all validated. And the dosage is one of the important matter, because the dose is the one which differentiates a poison from a remedy. And it's the general outstanding issue of the herbal treatments. While most medicines are heavily tested to determine the effectiveness and the safest dosages, and there are fewer varieties of the dosage for varieties of the herbal treatments on the market. So most of the plants, they are tested. Most of the plants means so-called which have got the very potential medicinal properties, and they are also tested for the toxicities, and also the exact dose, how much the dose need to be given, etc. Furthermore, the herbal medicines taken a whole from cannot generally guarantee a consistent dosage of the drug quality, since certain samples may contain more or less than a given active ingredient. So what is the meaning of this sentence is, so we cannot take for the granted that a plant, XYZ plant, is having the same medicinal property, either it is procured from India or America or Africa or China. So the habitat of the plant, the environmental condition in which it is grown, the season of plucking, the stage of the plant's growth, and the varieties of the plant for these are all the variants, especially while standardizing the particular plant. And several methods of standardization may be applied to herbs. One is that ratio of raw material to the solvent is not the gold standard. However, different specimens, even the same plant species, may vary in the chemical content. So the different plant specimens which are procured from different parts and different geological area may vary. So the thin layer chromatography is sometimes used as the growers to assess the content of their products before use, especially certain the modern pharmaceuticals like the natural remedies, Indian herbs, the Himalaya, and many more companies nowadays, they have adopted the quality control system management, especially the QC department is there, and they test the raw materials before formulating the end product to maintain the quality. That's the main important reason. And the regulations, the issue of regulation is an area of continuing controversy in European Union and the USA, Indian subcontinental, the China. So varieties of the regulatory rules are there with the different government agencies, but they are not uniform throughout the world. And some herbalists maintain that the traditional remedies have a long history of use and do not require the level of the safety testing as xenobiotics. So they may be true to the extent, some extent, but they say that they have got the long traditional activity, and what are all these side effects, if any, are already observed in the systematic manner, and there is no necessity of once again conducting the safety tests is when compared to the modern medical agents like the xenobiotics or the drugs, which are in purest form, and others are in favor of the legally enforced quality standards, safety testing, and prescription by a qualified practitioner. So nowadays, what happens is the herbal-based products are handled by all type of the people, and each and every person who is not knowing the use of that particular plant, just like the noni and the amrita bindu and many more agents are, I think, they are under the hands of unqualified persons who do not know about the medicines and the mode of action and the toxicity. So the thought of the modern era is that whatever may be the claim, that ancient claim, the plant may be safe or it's having no side effects, etc., it should be tested in the modern method of standards, and also the safety testing and prescription should be given by a qualified practitioner. No quack or the person who is not having the license to practice should not give that particular plant to a patient. And some professional herbalist organizations have made statements calling a category of regulations for the herbal products. Lot of trials have been conducted, especially how to regulate this thing, the herbalists, because the each and every village has got 10 or 15 herbalists, and they practice in their own method and do the medication as per their wills and fancies. So yet others agree with the need of more quality testing, but believe that it can be managed through the reputation without government intervention. So this was the earlier thought, but whenever there is the side effect of these drugs have been found, especially the Chyawanprash, which is from the Dabur and many more companies, has been banned by the United States of the America in the 1911 or some years ago, because they were containing the pesticides and heavy metals more than the acceptable daily intake. So this acceptable daily intake means we cannot avoid the toxic substances in the everyday, maybe through the air, through the water, through the food. We are ingesting them. So there is certain quantity to which we can withstand, even though we consume it for the long time. That is called as the acceptable daily intake. So that limit should not be crossed, or else the toxicity happen. And the claim that the government intervention should not be there, that's right, but there should be legal status of the herbal ingredients, varieties of the in different countries. So in the European Union, herbal medications are now regulated under the European Directive on Traditional Herbal Medicinal Product, especially in the European countries. This is the agency, European Directive of the Traditional Herbal Medicinal Product. Whereas in case of United States of the America, most herbal remedies are regulated as dietary supplements. So they are food supplements or food nutraceuticals by the Food and Drug Administration. It itself is controlling, and they are used under the dietary supplements. And manufacturers of the products falling into this category are not required to prove the safety or efficacy of their product. Through the FDA may withdraw a product from sale, and should it prove that if it is proved harmful, then the FDA will withdraw such compounds. So such stringent policies are there and somewhere else. And in the UK, the herbal remedies that are brought over the counter are regulated as the food supplements only. Whereas the US, however, herbal remedies have been prescribed and dispensed by a qualified medical herbalist. That's called as the alternative medicines. So under this license, they may practice the medical herbs after a personal consultation as regulated as medicines. Of course, this is practiced in US, especially in the Michigan state, wherever the animals are also being treated with a herbalist, a homeopath, and many more people are treating the animals under the heading that he is a medical herbalist. And that's about the introduction of the particular subject, especially the pharmacology, first lecture, and I will inform the next classes in future.